What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dimmy Reads Comics. Today, we're going to do a review of the last and final volume of Tales from the Crypt. This is Tales from the Crypt Volume 5, trade paperback. It is trade paperback, so it does have glued binding, and it is published by Dark Horse Books. Um, what's weird about this one is the first four volumes, on the back of it, it tells you the issues it collects, but this one doesn't for some reason. But this one does have 216 pages, and it collects issues 41 through 46, which is the whole run. Um, and so, what I'm going to do with this was I'm going to talk about the first few stories in here, and then after that, I'm just going to talk about the series in general, and just go from there. Kind of like I'm not going to really go into every story like I've been doing, but yeah. From volume one started off nice. Volume two, it was kind of a slow burn read. Volume three was definitely a slow burn read because the stories were becoming very repetitive to where you already knew what was going to happen. But volume four kind of changed it up a little bit, and same with volume five. Like I did not know the route that we're going to take. There's some stories in here where I was reading it and I was like, oh, I didn't know it was going to take that route. Okay, so yeah, I between between the five volumes, I do gotta say, um, volume one is my favorite. Volume two and three, it's whatever. But volume four and five, they're pretty good as well. The overall series, I enjoyed them. I love that I'm reading stuff from like the 1950s, and knowing where comics come from. So I really appreciate that. So, anyways, like I said, this is the fifth and final volume of Trails from the Crypt. There is still that I'm going to be doing the Vault of. I'm not going to be doing the Vault of Horror. I'm sorry, because I can't find volume two and volume three. So I'm going to be doing the Haunt of Fear, and I believe that's four volumes. I'm going to be doing shock suspense stories and crime suspense stories, and we'll see how those go. I know when it comes to the crime suspense stories and the shock suspense stories, they don't have the Crypt Keeper, the Old Witch, or the Vault Keeper. They're just stories. As far as the Haunt of Fear, it is supposed to be the Old Witch's kind of magazine. But again, like this one, it's told, stories are in there are told by the Crypt Keeper, the Old Witch, and the Vault Keeper. So they did it exactly like they did it with this one. So I don't know why they do that. It is what it is. I enjoyed the stories. And what's interesting is I was just talking to somebody about it yesterday, how I enjoyed these stories thoroughly, but I mean, five volumes already. Think of it this way: each volume has six volumes, and I'm pretty sure I said this before. Each volume has six issues. Each issue has 24 stories. So 24. I'm sorry. So each volume has six issues. Each issue has four stories. So each volume has 24 stories. So 24 times five, that's 120 stories that you're reading here, short stories. And it's like you can't really invest too much time into them because then you're going to move on to the next one and completely forget about the one that you just read. So you just got to read it, enjoy it while you're reading it, and move forward. So anyway, that being said, guys, let's go ahead and crack this open. I'll talk, like I said, I'm going to talk about the first few stories, and then other than that, I'm just going to kind of flip through it, talk about the volume, and talk about the series in general, and then go from there. Alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and crack this open and talk about the first few stories and then go from there. So again, Tales from the Crypt, Volume 5. You got the Crypt Keeper, the Old Witch, and the Vault Keeper. This cover is by Jack Davis. It always shows you right here in the beginning, and I'll show you that. What's funny though, each five volumes, the end page always shows this. In volume four, there's actually a story where it shows you this image actually, and it's actually an interesting story actually of that where it comes from up there. But yeah, you actually get to see where that image comes from. So EC Archives Tales from the Crypt, Volume 5, issues 41 through 46, forwarded by Bruce Campbell. It is show you published by Dark Horse Books. Now, as far as the people that worked on it, like I said, you got a forward by Bruce Campbell, you got an introduction by Grant Geisman, and then you got a whole bunch of people that worked on it. You got Jack Davis, Otto Binder, George Evans, Bill Gaines, Al Feldstein, unknown. This one doesn't even show you anybody. Jack Kamen, Bill Gaines. I said those ones already. Jack Oleg, Jack Davis, Carl Wessler, Mary Stevens, Bernie Kriegstein, Graham Ingels. Some of these are repetitive, but I'm trying to see if I find some that I haven't said before. Reed Crandall, Jack Kamen's in there. What's weird is this one has a lot of unknowns. There's one, two, three, four, and in the other ones, there's like at least six or seven stories in here that are just unknown. Or yeah, it's stories, not issues. Anyway, so that's all the people. If you guys want to you want, I'll stop it there so you guys can kind of pause it and kind of look through who did what. And anyway, so here's the introduction by Grant Geisman. I believe he did a lot of introductions actually, and the other ones. But the forwards are by different people. This one's done by Bruce Campbell. I don't really read these. Anyways, here's Tales from the Crypt, issue number 41. It's done by Jack Davis. This first story is actually very interesting. Operation Friendship. So in this story, you're being told a story about an old guy and how he met with this friend when they were kids, and they grew up doing everything together. Being into the surgery field. One of them went into the surgery field. One of them went into a different field, but they were still working together. But one of them eventually got married, and the other one got jealous. And so the old guy that's telling the story eventually gets so jealous of the other guy being married that he kind of kidnaps him, performs a surgery on him, and now has like his temporal lobe of the smart part of him, brain, in like a tube, and left the other part for his wife. It's a very interesting story, but what's weird about it is you read something similar like this before, except for the part of the jealousy part. It was almost like, if for back then, I don't know how people would have thought about it, but for me, for me, it almost seemed like a jealousy of like a gay tendency type of thing. Now, I'm not saying anything against that, don't get me, I'm not saying anything about, homosexual, nothing like that, but that's what I thought. He had like this kind of romantic relationship with the guy, but it didn't really show it, but that's what I kind of thought about it. But yeah, this was a very interesting story, even though I've read something like it before. It was a little bit different. And like I said, at the end of it, he's playing chess with the brain, actually, right? You can see the brain floating right here. A very interesting story, actually. Come Back, Little Linda was another interesting story, something I haven't heard about. It has to do with an insane asylum. There, people are keeping, I guess you can say, prisoners, not even really inmates, in an insane asylum, but they're keeping them in dungeons, and they're keeping them in like cells and not really taking care of them until there's a inspection by the city, where they make the inmates clean up a whole bunch of the whole insane asylum, and they get found out eventually that they're keeping him in the dungeon. It was an interesting story, actually, something very different. It wasn't one of them scary ones. It was more of like you knew what was going to happen towards the end, but it kind of kept you on your toes. I liked it. It was a very interesting story, actually. And Linda's at the end of the story, you find out is actually a rat. Here's the middle pages that I never read. Current Attraction. Very interesting story, but it's something that I've read before. It has to do with, in the circus. This guy wants he used to be a trapeze artist. He's getting too old now. He can't do it, so he gets his daughter doing it. And so yeah, he's practicing with his daughter. In the whole carnival thing, the daughter meets a guy that throws knives and an axe at his wife, and his wife doesn't want to give him a divorce, but the daughter still likes the guy. They start dating. The old man doesn't like it. um Eventually the old man comes up with an idea to kill this guy that throws knives, and it's a setup to where he's going to murder his wife that doesn't want to give him the divorce. But something happens, something comes up where the wife gives the guy the divorce, and the daughter takes his place, and he ends up murdering the guy that's throwing knives ends up murdering the daughter, but it was all planned out by this guy. Very interesting story, but I read it, something similar with with circus stuff. It was a good story though. I actually enjoyed this one a lot. Um, Mess Call was another interesting story of a guy that's having PT. Now, I really enjoyed this story a lot because it's about a guy that has really bad PTSD during World War II. He's having nightmares about a certain event, and he's locked up in a mental hospital. Some guy takes him in. The old guy eventually you find out is drugging him and is actually having him commit that same act over and over again. And eventually the guy comes up and realizes that it hasn't always been a dream, that he's always been committing that same atrocious act because of the old guy. Very interesting story. Something that I've never really read in the other issues. Really pulled me in because, like I said, I'm a veteran and I have PTSD. So this one really resonated with me. Even though my PTSD is not as bad as this guy's, but anyway. Um, issue number 42. Very interesting one too as well. Like I said, these ones are very interesting stories. Concierto for Violin and Werewolf. Obviously, now that you read that, this story does have to do with a werewolf. I'm not going to get into it too much, but like a story I've read before. This guy is in a town of vampires. This is a town of werewolves. A lot of back and forth stuff. The guy, his master that taught him everything, is a werewolf as well, including a lot of people. So this story is about a werewolf. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, not because it's a werewolf and things like that. It's just I read something similar of it. I read a lot of werewolf stories. It wasn't even something new, so that's why I wasn't the biggest fan of that one. By the Dawn's Early Light. This one was a very interesting story. Um, there's this guy that this actually has to do with the vampire too, actually. So it wasn't another story that I was interested in, but it was interesting enough to where it was a little something brand new. There's this guy, he comes back from out of town. He's mourning the death of his wife. Um, and he sits down with the guy. He's seeing him. Eventually, he finds out that who's ever killing the people in the town is a vampire. He goes and finds out who it is. He tries to kill the vampire. Eventually, he finds out that the vampire is his best friend. So, like I said, it wasn't something new. It has to do with the vampire. An interesting story, but nothing to the point where it was new. I enjoyed it, but it was another vampire story. You know what I mean? Here's the middle of the issue. The Bath. This one was actually a very interesting story. It had to do with the guy that in a plantation. It a plantation with workers. I'm not going to say black, whatever like that, nothing like that. A plantation with workers. He treats them badly. Eventually, he kills the plantation owner kills the kid because he's not doing his work. The parents of the kid try to stand up to him. The plantation owner gets mad. He shoots the parents, and he has a servant that's always drawing him a bath because he always feels dirty after dealing with the people working for him at his plantation. Come to find out that that servant was actually the brother of that little kid, and the parents are the son of the parents he killed. So he gets his revenge with piranhas in the bath. Very interesting story, something different that I've read, something new. That's why I enjoyed it so much. Um, it was, but then again, it is a revenge story, so it's some. It was kind of samey as the other ones like before. Hoodwinked had to do with two brothers, an older brother, a younger brother. The mom died. The mom made the older brother promise to always take care of the younger brother. The younger brother takes advantage of it, um, always asking for money. The older brother always gives him everything he wants, including his girl that he's supposed to marry. Um, the the guy, the younger brother that takes advantage of the wife, the girlfriend, ends up having relationship with her. She gets so distraught that she kills herself, and the older brother gets so mad about it and eventually takes revenge on the brother. That one was an interesting story, actually. Um, a new take, a new story. That's why I enjoyed it so much. I think this is one of the other ones that I'm going to talk about, and then after that, I'm just going to talk about the books in general. This story was an interesting story. Four-way split. Had to do with two guys in the military. But when they're not in the military and they're on vacation or taking a break, they're friends. Eventually, they leave the military. They they form a plan to start their own business. Their business is going well, but one of that guy keeps acting like a leader because he actually outranked the other guy in the military. So one of the guys takes revenge on him, ends up killing him. The way he kills him is he drops him in the four square of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. That was interesting because each state wanted it, they wanted the jurisdiction of it, so they couldn't. There was so much fighting back and forth between the states that they couldn't. They were just prolonging it more and more. But during the time, the guy was being electrocuted. He was being in a gas chamber. He was hanged. And what's happening is the guy that he actually killed his partner that he killed was actually electrocuting him. He was hanging him. He was giving him the gas chamber, and then finally the firing squad, which doesn't make sense because how can you do all those? Like, you can't give him a little bit of gas chamber until he passes out. You can't give him a little bit of a hanging before he passes out. So this one was an interesting story until the end, and you're like, okay, so it wasn't a dream. It was just the other guy getting his revenge back. So yeah, that one was a thinker. I couldn't think about it too much because it was your short story. But anyway, that being said, guys, I'm not going to talk about any more of the stories. Um, each story though is very interesting. There's some crime, there's some ghouls, monsters, vampires. They're all kind of samey, but overall I really enjoyed this one. But there's a lot of reading, as you guys can see here. Each one of these took me a while to read, um because there's just so much text to read. But what I liked about these is that there's some new content in here that you didn't see in the first three volumes, first four volumes. In the first three volumes, the stories, like I said, were really repetitive. But in these ones, there was new ones. Yes, some of them are repetitive. Some of them you read before. When you're done reading the story, it's like, huh, I read something similar like that, in the other one. So, in a sense, yeah, you read some of these stories and you're like, oh man, I read something like this already, and before. But there is new stories in here that gets you going. And I'm like, oh man, this one was an interesting story. This one wasn't. This one was eh. But they're interesting stories to read. I really enjoyed it a lot. There's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of stories that are the same. But with all that being said, what's weird about it is when you get kind of towards the end of this, you would think that the crypt keeper, or I guess you can say the crypt keeper, because he does talk to you. Like, for example, at the end of every story, he talks to you, like us, the audience, a little bit. And you would think that, knowing that this is going to be the last volume, the last issue that he's going to do, he would talk to you and say something about that. But it just kind of cuts it out, like he's going to see you in the next one. And I'll show you guys that at the end. So I think they cut it off. They were planning maybe on doing more, but they didn't, which was kind of weird. But I would have kind of liked a wrapped up story, like, hey, this is going to be it. And it wasn't like that. Um, and obviously you couldn't say the same thing with the witch or anything, because she has her own magazine, her own volumes. Same with the crypt keeper. He has I'm sorry, not the crypt keeper, the vault keeper. He has the vault of horror, and they didn't wrap it up any way, shape, or form either. So it was interesting that they, in a sense, you would think that they were going to keep going with the stories, but they didn't. And this was the last of it, because if you look online and see what issue was the very last issue, um it does say that issue 46 is the very last issue. And so, did they stop it abruptly? Did something happen with the company? Who knows what happened? But it kind of sucks that they kind of wrapped it up, but they didn't kind of give like a closing thing to it. This was an interesting story with the shark. It was something new that you didn't read. Um, people that have phobias of sharks. But anyway, um, but yeah, like, what I really liked about it is, there was interesting stories. I didn't read anything new about a shark, so this one was an interesting story. Overall, the volumes, like I said, volume one was so great to me because it was the start of it. It was something new, something great I was reading. But once I got to volume two, I was like, okay, these stories are still good, but they're becoming kind of repetitive. Once I got to volume three, I was like, oh god, these stories are all the same. It's still great, but now I'm kind of done. I'm over this already. And in volume four and five, it kind of picked up again because the art kind of became more refined. The stories, the the background they give you on the stories, even though it's like between 5 to 7 pages, they kind of fill you in a lot more, even though they're going to explain a lot of things. And once you read the story, sometimes you're like, that kind of doesn't make sense. But this was interesting right here. I like this. This is what I liked actually right here. Kind of everybody here, Miss W Gaines, everybody that's here. So this was maybe like the thank you for reading our stuff kind of thing. So maybe that's what I thought of it. But yeah, I really like these stories. I'm glad I'm done with it already though. Um, I'm ready to move on from these. I'm glad I picked these up. I'm glad I read them. It wasn't something that I'm gonna say that I'm very very like, oh, these were fantastic. You guys have to read these. Yeah, I highly recommend you guys read these. But I recommend you guys read them if you pick them up in the volumes. I highly recommend you guys read them like separately. Like read volume one, set it to the side, read a few of the different things, come back and read volume two. Don't read them back to back to back because 120 short stories is going to kind of keep your mind busy with the stories at the same time, not too much thinking about it. So you're not going to enjoy it as much because I didn't. I enjoyed some of the stories, some of them I didn't. Um, and so, yeah, like I said, these were great stories. I'm kind of glad they're over with and done. Um, this is the last issue right here, and as you can see here, the Vault Keeper, he doesn't he says bye because he sees you on the next one, but let's see. It's time to close the crypt of terror and turn you back to the Vault Keeper, as the dismembered parts of a corpse said. When they are shipped to the Undertakers, we'll get together again. See, right there, saying that he's going to see you again, but we don't. This is the end of it, and so at the end of it, this is I believe this is the Crypt Keeper actually again. This is your Crypt Keeper bidding you goodbye and wishing you nothing but the best nightmares. Actually, yeah, right here, he actually does say goodbye. He doesn't say see you on the next one. But then again, towards the end of his stories, he doesn't really say that. He kind of says that at the last, like he'll say bye, but because they're moving on to the next issue. So I don't know if he was actually saying bye, like we're not going to see you anymore. So I don't know. It didn't really say like there wasn't an actual goodbye, which I didn't really like. But yeah, let's finish this up right here. This is the last story right here. Um, yeah, she doesn't really say goodbye either because she has her own stuff too. Like I said, we are going to do the Haunt of Fear series, the crime suspense stories. We're not going to do the Vault of Horror because I can't find volumes 2 and 3. We're not going to do the Weird Fantasy because I can't find issues 2 and 3. And we're not going to do Weird Science because I can't find issues 3 and 4. So they're getting really hard to come by. This is the end page, and this is the back of the book, and it shows you the title pages for each one, the cover pages for each issue. I would say my favorite one is probably this one right here, just because of the girl, I guess. But anyway, and like I said right here, usually on the other ones, it shows you what issues it collects. This one doesn't. I don't know why it didn't do that. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and do the rating for this and see what you guys think. Alrighty, guys. So before we do the rating for Tales from the Crypt Volume 5 trade paperback, um, let's do a quick recap. Like I said, this is Tales from the Crypt Volume 5, 216 pages, collects issues 41 through 46. Published by Dark Horse Books, and because it is trade paperback, it does have glued binding. Now, what do I give this as a rating? I think I'm just going to keep sticking with a solid 3 all around for this book. This book alone, a solid 3, and a solid 3 for the entire series of Tales from the Crypt. I really enjoyed these. Like I said previously when I was doing, the overhead shot, that um, I really enjoyed Volume 1. Volume 2, I kind of enjoyed, but it was kind of becoming repetitive. Volume 3, I didn't really enjoy. I don't know if it was because it was too repetitive. I was kind of, slow burning reading it. I was done with it already. But it kind of picked up in Volume 5, or I'm sorry, in Volume 4. And then it definitely picked up in Volume 5 again. So I enjoyed these stories a lot. So like I said, I recommend you guys do read all the Tales from the Crypt, just so you can see where comics come from, the horror comics at least, or graphic novels, however you guys want to say, where they come from. Because this is the 1950s. This is 75 years old. These stories are 75 years old. So I do highly recommend you guys pick it up, read them. Don't read them back to back like I did, because you're not going to enjoy them as much. read them one volume at a time, set it to the side, come back to it, read the next one. Because if you read them back to back to back to back, you're gonna get burnt out with them. You're gonna get burnt out with 120 short stories, and you're not gonna enjoy it. So I do highly recommend read them separately, send them to the side for a while, and come back to them. That's how I do recommend you guys read them. Next, we're gonna be reading. I'm sorry. Enough. Like I said, if you guys like this video, please leave a like in the comments down below. Let me know if you guys enjoyed reading Tales from the Crypt, or if you guys reading the Vault of Horror, the Haunt of Fear, the Weird Science. Let me know which one you guys enjoyed the most. Like I said, I am going to be reading the Haunt of Fear, but not the Vault of Horror because I can't find volumes 2 and 3. I was thinking about picking up Two-Fisted Tales, but yeah, I don't really want to, because I am a veteran. I do have PTSD. I don't want to kind of relive that stuff, so that's why I decided not to pick it up. Even though I said I was going to, but I'm probably not going to. I am kind of excited to read the shock suspense stories and the crime suspense stories. I am a big fan of crime graphic novels. So all that being said, guys, I'm not taking recommendations. I have a lot of stuff that I got to read and go through. So I'm not taking recommendations, but if you guys want to leave something in the comments and let me know what I should look at, I'll maybe take a look at it, see if it's something I'm interested in, maybe put it in my cart. But it has to really pull me in to the point where I'm like, okay, I want to read this. But if it's not something that, if I look at it, I'm just like, I'm going to just set it to the side for now. Even though I'm saying that, still maybe leave a recommendation if you guys really, really think I should read it, and I'll leave it in my cart and just save it for a while. Hopefully it doesn't go out of print or something like that. Anyway, guys, what we're going to be reading next is Ghost World. What I'm going to start doing is showing you guys what I'm going to be reading next, so you guys can look forward to it. So let me reach over here. I am going to be reading Ghost World by Daniel Klaus. Um, I'm not going to give any previews or anything like that, but I'm going to be reading this next. Be on the lookout for a review of this. What I was going to start doing, guys, I was going to start doing previews of this. So what I was going to do is kind of do a 5-minute preview of the book, kind of flip through it. But then I was like, that's just, why do that if you can just do the review? So I just decided not to do that. So the way I'm going to do it now is starting from Tales from the Crypt. This video is I'm going to show you what I'm going to be reading next. I'm going to be reading this one next, and then be on the lookout after this one. It's Blankets, and then we're going to be reading the Watchmen franchise series, whatever you want to call it. After that, looks like we got The Question. So be on the lookout for this next. Set that to the side. All that being said, guys, if you guys haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Shout out to everybody that's been liking, watching, commenting, subscribing to my channel. It really helps us as content creators, and it really helps my channel up. Like I said, I started this a while ago for me, just so I can kind of go back and look at the videos and be like, oh yeah, this is what this is about. But it has been growing, not significantly like I wanted it and hoped to, but enough to where I'm enjoying it and I'm happy doing this kind of content. I'm not, looking forward to, YouTube reaching out one day and being like, hey, do you want to get sponsored? No, because I hate to where, when you watch a video, this video is sponsored by this, and you have to watch a big old ad or a whole bunch of ads. I don't like that. So, for me, I just want to keep it grounded. If people want to donate for me to do this, I might start something up like that. But as far as me, becoming corporatized, I don't know if that's a word, I'm not going to go down that route. So anyway, guys, all that being said, take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.